Hello, adventurers. My name's Tyler.
And I'm Richard.
On today's episode, we're discussing Buried Arcana. Welcome to True Strike.
Howdy, folks, and welcome back to the show. Today
Howdy.
we are talking walkbacks. That's right. Unearthed Arcana has been going for some time now, and not everything has made the cut. So not everything has stuck when it was thrown against the wall. Some stuff has been put back into the ground that it was dug up from. Some of which, we agree with, and some of which makes me sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The idea of this episode really sprung forth when we'll get towards the end, but a pretty well-liked, subclass between the two of us was just unceremoniously recovered and just pushed 6 feet back into the ground where
dirt
presumably came from
over top of it.
Just
Yeah. No.
Yep.
And we'd always wanted to talk about Unearthed Arcana in general, because we kind of touched on it a little bit a couple episodes ago.
I mean, to be fair, we touch on UAs
Well,
constantly.
Not UA in general. I'm talking about the idea of Unearthed Arcana, where it's going, how it's been going, and walkbacks in general. But the thing that has been like a major conversation over the last couple of days is what you're referring to, which is the fighter subclass of Brawler.
You just knocked it out right away.
Yeah, because I mean that's kind
up.
of that's kind of what started the conversation of Unearthed Arcana, and like brought me to wanting to make an episode about it this soon, because this is something that I did want to talk about, but I was actually going to save it for the end of the Player's Handbook on Unearthed Arcana and like the start of the DMG, essentially. But then they, pulled the rug out from underneath me on my super exciting subclass of the Brawler, because that was one of the things that like when I read that in the thing, if you go back and listen to the episode, I was hyped for this. Yeah, I was so excited for this.
I think rightfully so. I mean, it sounded great. And I know across Reddit and other groups and communities there, just, be a barbarian with these combination of 3 feats. That
like, this does it better if I do these 3 feats and we start at level 7.
It's the same thing, guys.
It's the same exact thing.
Better. Why would you want the fighter to just innately get these abilities and then be able to flavor and min-max your character in a different entire direction?
I don't know. People didn't like it.
No,
I thought it was awesome. I did not think it stepped on the toes of the monk, which is another argument that I've heard.
I mean, I would say it did a little bit, but that monk subclass isn't currently going to be in the next book.
Yeah, exactly.
So, look, if you're not going to give it to the monk, which already needs a lot of work.
Well, yeah, and the monk is a wholly different thing because you're dealing with discipline points and everything like that. You're not getting discipline points for the Brawler class. It just was more focused on that always kind of prepared, character who's just going to pick something up and use it or grapple and stuff like that. And I don't know, it just seemed like it was a really exciting thing. And I legit, like, no joke, my next like player character was going to be using the Brawler subclass. I was so hyped to actually use this class. Like, this was going to be something that I was going to play.
And you know what, Richard? And this is on the record, and if it's in my game, it can be. You know what? This material is still out there.
It's underground.
Look,
this is underground now.
They don't know what we're doing in here. Nobody knows.
Like, I was so excited for this that it was going to be like a class that I was going to be playing in the future, and then like we were going to get the new handbook and we were going to start a new campaign using it. That was going to be my first character. Wow. Like right on, like 100%. This was going to be my next character.
Well, maybe now
and then the rug was just pulled out from underneath me.
Maybe now we do this and we're 30 sessions in and you're like, hey Tyler, I get it. I understand now. I was a fool.
Yeah.
Can I please switch to the walked back warlock?
Maybe I'm wrong about it, and it wasn't as great, and I'm looking at it through nostalgia glasses from 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Can you remember the good times?
The good times when I read through, that page and a half and was so excited for it. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it really is not a great thing, but that's kind of what got us talking, like I said, about Unearthed Arcana in general, and what we refer to now as Buried Arcana.
Yeah.
Because walkbacks have been a thing.
Right.
So they've come out with some really like hot and heavy stuff that they then took back really quickly for certain things.
Yeah.
And it's not just that. What are you doing?
What do you mean? What am I doing? I'm doing the thing.
What is the thing?
For podcast listeners, I'm doing the thing.
He's pointing a camera at me.
For podcast listeners, True Strike is no longer only True Strike Podcast. It is True Strike. And True Strike Podcast is part of that. So we do not only, podcast services around the globe and YouTube, in which we now have as you can see if you're watching on YouTube, the more glorious than ever before because our beautiful faces are now shown video version.
Something.
You can also find us on TikTok and Instagram and Threads and all those places. X. And sometimes we do board game reviews and things like that. I know this is totally out of nowhere. I wasn't going to mention it in the middle of the podcast, but Richard brought it up. What I'm doing right now is getting TikTok content.
Oh, yeah, technically I did bring that up. Okay, so yeah, he's taking some TikTok content.
Yep.
So hi. But yes, Unearthed Arcana, they have been walking it back, and they walk back some stuff that needed walking back. So
yeah.
They did stuff with crits.
Yes,
way in the beginning.
That really needed.
Yeah,
I give them points for trying out a couple different versions of it, and for trying that out first.
Yeah,
and then realizing immediately that we didn't like it and pulling it away. But at least they tried it.
No, at least they tried it. They did some stuff in the beginning too with exhaustion, which I really liked.
Yeah,
which I think I'm kind of in a minority there. I know we had Garrett on the podcast when we talked about exhaustion, and then we had him on when we talked about the walkback of exhaustion.
Yeah. And
he made some really good points as to why it really wasn't going to be a good system. But that was one that I kind of liked a lot.
I think no matter what, so if it's part of the UA, it's something they're working on and tweaking and stuff like that. And it was early enough that they had plenty of chances to, get some different variations of it. It was better than the current version.
Yeah.
In my opinion, better than the current version out the gate. So knowing that they can spend the next year working on it and improving it even more, why just get rid of all that progress and go back to a version that as far as I'm aware, no one really likes?
Yeah, no, I don't see anybody arguing for the original version of Exhaustion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then after Exhaustion, we had a whole thing with individualized spell lists, which was a really interesting direction for things to head.
You keep bringing up walking down this list, taking this stroll with you. I keep forgetting how much I liked some of these things. And you speak of Garrett, and I've had people point out to me the cons of having these different, individualized spell lists and such like that. When you say individualized, you mean like the 3 different spell lists.
Yeah, not individualized spell list, but the main spell list selection. Yeah.
And I kind of did like it from like a new player standpoint, and just to know like, hey, at this level you get one more spell from the arcane spell list or something like that. And I was like, okay, yeah, I dig this, and I get why individual spell list makes more sense when you look at things like Find Steed,
yes,
and stuff like that. But why could they already did it?
Yeah, they addressed that.
Yes, some of the classes had class specific spells, just part of the class description or subclass, and it's like they just didn't want to go that direction. I don't know. I guess it tested badly enough for them to take it out.
Yeah, and I guess that's the takeaway there, is that this stuff is presumably taken out because it tested poorly. Yeah. And then individualized spell list versus these 3 major spell lists. I'll be honest, I'm part of the problem on that walkback because I disagreed with it in the survey.
Yeah.
Because originally when I took the survey, I had very strong feelings on that. And I felt like it was taking away from the identity of the classes. That's how I thought of it.
Oh, that's fair.
And then after they took it back, I kind of had second thoughts.
It was too late. No.
But it was too late. I had already submitted this survey, which you should do. You should submit those surveys, even if you regret your choices later down the road. And you should if you're one of the ones that tested about Brawler. But no, originally like I said, I tested against the the takeaway of the individualized spell list, because I felt that it was taking away from what felt like the individual classes. I think it made everybody kind of feel more watered down,
Okay.
and that it wasn't, not that it wasn't that your class didn't matter anymore, but it felt like it mattered less.
I fully understand.
I don't know if I'm explaining myself.
No, you are, because it's you are, but my I'll get to the rebuttal sort of in a second because it's messy. But as most things I say are, and I absolutely get it, because if man, your wizards and your sorcerers and your warlocks are all pulling from the same like arcane spell list, what's the difference between the three other than some like very specific class or subclass choices or changes?
Yeah.
Or, oh, the sorcerer gets this sorceress burst. And you're like, oh, cool, the wizard doesn't get that, but they get these other things. And sure, but when they're individualized spell list made a la carte per character, you're still doing that. They're still getting access to a lot, if not majority of the same spells.
Yeah.
They just are the wizard spell list, or stuff like that. It definitely fine tunes a little more for like the druid or the cleric, sorta. Even then you see some like wiggle room to both. And that's where I'm like, okay, well, this was already kind of happening. We haven't just because it's the like, cleric spell list doesn't mean other, classes aren't dipping into some of those spells too. It's just this list belongs to the cleric.
Yeah, belongs to the cleric, yeah. Out of all the walkbacks too, this one was the most shocking, I think.
I am surprised by this one
because it was a big move. At least it was a large wave,
which is part of my problem with all these walkbacks.
Yeah,
they keep taking big swings, pushing for it.
Yeah, pushing for that big swing,
then just giving it and completely walking it back. And then at a certain point, I'm like, all right, guys, if I'm gonna spend all this money again on these books, you better have more for me than just Bastions.
Yeah, and that's, I said, this was a huge change. And when it first dropped, I was like, okay, now this is really showing us a big move, and it made me wonder about the next coming UAs and how it was going to change. And then it fundamentally changed some classes, like warlocks, for instance.
Yeah,
was a big changeover for them.
Very big change.
And then
only a couple spells, at max level, switched entirely to actual spell slots.
Yeah. Now we're back to pack magic. So that got walked back with that. I have to say, I am happy about warlocks.
I've always liked that warlocks get to focus in on cantrips.
Yeah.
And have the big damage, max powered spells. I get why a lot of people probably don't. They don't play the same as all these, they can't just be blasting all these different spells all the time. It makes it feel like, oh, well, I have to hoard my spell slots. And if only I'd used that spell slot, I would have survived this encounter, but I was holding on to it. And if only I'd counterspelled them when I knew I could have, but I wanted to save it because I figured I would have been fine. But
not that this has happened recently with my warlock, okay. So, but I accept that.
No, 100%.
That is on me.
And that's if nothing else, learning curve, because you're like, you know what? I got to learn. I just got a short rest.
Yeah, I just got a short rest.
But then you get to that point where they're like, okay, we don't want warlocks to be short rest dependent when no one else is. And they kind of walk back to that a little bit too. And there's these weird little things they're trying to do. And I appreciate the big swings. And it just feels weird when they take big swings and they get any pushback and they cave.
Yeah, and they immediately give in to it and then take it away.
They're scared. Because they've, other than their own follies, have ridden this really good wave for 5e. And 5th edition's been great for them between, you have these more publicly known higher end like games on Twitch and everything else, your critical roles, your dimension 20s, your careful cantrips and things like that, making waves in the space and bringing all this attention to 5e, and it's selling so well, and D&D Beyond becoming its own thing and them acquiring that, and all this is great. And for this, this anniversary that they have to hit the deadline of 2024 because the 50th anniversary, so they have to hit this artificial deadline. They don't want to mess up and make it worse, and then people be like, well, I don't like this. When's the next one? But to that I say, you have gone out of your way to say and, do whatever you can to make like, oh, the 2014 and the 2024 version are both usable and cross compatible and everything else. And to that, I'm like, cool. Make the big swings.
Yeah.
And then when Jerry doesn't like the new version of Warlock because he liked the Pack Magic better, he can use the 2014 version because that's acceptable and it hasn't changed and it isn't going to change as far as I'm aware. And if Susie likes the 2024 version better, she can use that one. And now they're the same.
Yeah, now they're the same functionally.
So, well, I don't understand why they're afraid to make these pushes at that point, especially because now I'm going to go and I'm going to buy these books and there's going to be changes. There's going to be updates and wording and things to, they've learned things over the years. And, a couple episodes ago, we went over some of the new cantrip changes, which who knows, maybe they won't stick. These UAs are weird, but if they do all stick, cool. Some cantrips have changed. Neat.
Yeah. Well, I think when you talk about this whole, like, the mention of 5e, this version still being around, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
You're like, okay, well, what's the point of saying that this is still going to be around if the new one is just going to be it? I think is kind of a two-part thing, though, because while they have come out and said that, yes, that's going to be around, the 2014 edition is going to be there, it's going to be playable, you know what I mean? That's going to be there. I don't think they really want you to play that. It's there, right? And it's going to be compatible. However, when you think about the future of the game in general, and you think about the new handbook that's coming out and everything like that, you're going to be looking at a focus on this new set of rules to be the new set of rules, because everything is going to be based on that
eventually.
So their VTT and their map systems and all that stuff, it's all going to be integrated with the newest edition. Yes, the old edition still exists and is still there, but it is not the focus. It's just going to be there for those people that are not willing to move forward because they don't like the new material.
I think they bit themselves in the foot. That's the saying, right?
Yeah.
They bit themselves in the foot on this then, because they won't shut up about the fact that you can play either one. It doesn't matter. You can have people in the same party mixing it up and whatever, and that's totally fine as long as your class and your subclass are both from the same version, like the same year's release.
Yeah.
Then you're good to go. These officially licensed products like the tabletop, the VTT and stuff like that, they're going to have to work for everything. And to be fair, virtual maps should.
Yeah, that should
I'm not seeing too many issues there. Now, you're right, I think, especially when things like Adventures League and things like that, which aren't for everybody. They're their own, thing. Those will, if I had to guess, be the 2024 version. And sure, they got to make money. They got to sell a product. They got to sell these books all over again, Richard.
Yeah.
So, but as a consumer, if I wasn't doing Dungeons and Dragons as often as I am, I would be in no rush to buy a slight refresh. Not nearly the same as I would. Did you hear they changed Warlock? Oh, I have to get the new version.
Yeah.
Not, oh, they updated Warlock. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
what changed?
And that's what makes me wonder about some of these walkbacks, because Warlock's one of them. You also have Druids. They made some big swings for Druids.
They haven't fully settled on Druid
No, they haven't fully settled on Druid. So we have Druid and we also have Monk, right? So that are kind of out there.
Let's get to Monk on their own.
Well, yeah, no, but what I'm saying is that we have a couple of classes here. And Druid is one of them.
There's one other as well. There's 3.
Yeah, well, technically, yeah, there's 3. So Druid right now is one of those ones where we're not really sure where we're going to land on it, right? We know we got a revision, which I liked.
Yes.
I supported it. We had Garrett on the show for that episode, and we workshopped something that was great. I felt,
yeah, for sure.
Just the 3 of us, in a call,
hire us.
came up with a really good, solid version of Druid that I think could be published and would accomplish the goals that it felt like they set out for Druids, that they didn't feel that they met, that made them test poorly.
Right.
And then again, that was walked back.
Yep.
And that one is another one that I was kind of confused by, because while I didn't think it was perfect, right? The Druid that they had out. It wasn't perfect. It just needed subtle tweaks to be closer to perfect. And like I said, I think we came up with some really good ideas that got it closer to that.
Yeah.
So it's weird when they come out and they're all like, well, that didn't work. Just go back to square one.
Well, they didn't go back to square one.
Well, not to square one.
They went to a new square.
But they went to a whole new square.
They stepped to the left instead of forward.
Yeah, instead of just like making some minor tweaks to what they had come up with to make it more viable, they were like, well, what about, plan D?
Yeah. Which is the weird part. We could have, tested some more, because it wasn't that everybody hated it.
No, exactly.
It could use some tweaking and understanding, and especially when you're changing something people have played with for so long. Drastic changes kind of rub people the wrong way a lot of the time, especially when it was so different.
Yeah.
Like, and because it was, there was basically just stat blocks.
Yes.
And you just said what you wanted to become. As long as it fit that block, then you had your stats and you got to flavor it however you wanted, which I think is why we liked it.
Exactly. Yeah. Because it allows you to really play the game.
Yeah. Very quickly. You weren't looking up statistics like in the back of the monster manual or Jim's Guide or anything like that. You were just like, oh, I'm going to be a snail.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a cat or a shark or whatever, and a shark and a dolphin and a whale and everything
shrew
all had like the same,
whatever.
Stats, sure, which took away a little bit. It was a little weird that the shark and the dolphin have the same hit points, whatever. Okay, but it made like gameplay like quick.
Yeah, it made gameplay quicker, and it made it a little bit more. Well, I mean, I didn't play test that specifically, but I think that it would have made it more enjoyable to be a druid, because now you are able to tell a story more organically without having to pause everything and be all like, well, we got to figure out what the stat block is for this thing.
Or full-on anamorph.
Yeah, exactly. Or the DM just saying, well, we're not going to let you turn into a shrew right now because I don't have a stat block for a shrew and I'm not going to make one up right now. So you're going to be something else, you know? So that's where I kind of really liked where they were going with it. And I'm kind of sad that they took that back.
Right.
But you can also see why they did it, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, that one at least has kind of an argument to it.
Druid's an interesting case where the second version that they've made, I say second, like, so not including, all right, let's say third version. Because the first, you've got the 2014 version, and they had this second swing, and then they have a third swing where you just have like a set list at levels and stuff of what animals you can turn into. And I don't hate that either.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
That fully takes away a lot of the creativity in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not looking at that, and you just want to focus on the gameplay, yet again, speeding things up at the table and stuff like that, this accomplishes that too. And it allows each of these animals to have very specific stat blocks that the druid should be in, if this is the direct, the route they go, it should be in the player's handbook, especially if these are the animals you can become. And then like different source books down the road and stuff can include more animals and stuff like that. Like, oh, you got to have Tasha's cookbook if you want to turn into, a squirrel. But I'm okay with that too. If that's the route they want to go, I do lose some flavor. Now I'm still going to say my squirrel, has flames down its side and white hair and it's like squirrel fiery or like whatever. It's going to be my thing. And that's just how it's going to be. But I don't hate that either.
Yeah, I don't hate it. But like I said, we're going to talk about it more on a couple of jumps down the line.
That's the thing. Because they're going to do Druid again.
Yeah.
And is it going to be attempt number 4? Or is it going to double down on 2 or 3? Or is it going to go all the way back to 2014?
Yeah. And I know what I hope for. And that's, I hope to see something closer to Revision 2 or the first one that we saw.
I agree.
And that's because, and this is going to be a theme for me, which will also hit on, something else we're going to talk about when we get to monks, is that I tend to, and this is just me personally too, I know not everybody is like this, but I tend to lean more towards narrative and flavor than mechanics. And anything that takes away from my narrative and or flavor, that hurts me more personally, because that's what my takeaway is. That's what I want, right? And to me, when you made that change, not you,
Ah,
when they made that change,
he's on to me.
we talked about being able to just say in the moment what kind of animal that you want it to be,
Yeah.
and have it not break the game because of the way that, you have these weird basic stat blocks that, don't allow you to be constricted, but also don't allow you to just, break the GM's entire experience because you're deciding to be this specific thing that has, like, all these abilities or whatever. And if you want more stats, if you want more to go there, then what we talked about in the episode with Garrett was allowing you to have like small modifiers that you can apply based on, things like that. So that's what I liked about that.
Elemental like abilities and stuff like that too.
Yeah. So flavor, when you drop out the flavor, that's where you start to lose me on some of these things. And then you have things where you definitely see why they do what they do, because as fun as they sound, they can actually break the game, like the wizard's ability to make their own spells. So that was one that was walked back that in the moment sounded really exciting.
Yeah.
Because it was, essentially allowing you to alter a spell's text so you could change something fundamentally. And then at higher levels, you just make it part of the game now.
Yeah.
So instead of being a one-off, you're changing your spell from, just using it that one time. You're making your fireball that does lightning damage or, whatever it may be. And now you're writing it in your spell book. So it's just part of your kit now, which sounds really great on the surface. But when you start to get into the minutia of games and how much that can alter things, you start to see the power creep come in and how people are going to abuse that.
Yeah. I mean, there were some funny things, like interesting things like, I don't like the way that I've had to use verbal components to cast counterspell, so I'm going to craft Widowgast. Counterspell, it's silent. There's no vocal component. I just look at you and it happens.
Yeah.
And it's a thing you could do.
Yes.
And that's a very different kind of counterspell, because that counterspell can't be counterspelled if you didn't see it happen.
Yeah, if you didn't see it happening. Yeah.
Right. Which that creates an interesting dynamic. You're changing things in ways that are hard. It's hard to balance for.
Yeah, it's really hard to balance for. But yeah, and that's what made it kind of exciting when they put it in.
And players have to be creative.
This is neat. It's going to force some creativity.
Yes.
And it didn't seem like it was low enough level to where it was going to be immediately bad, right? So it's not something that you're getting the ability to do at level 4.
No.
Yeah. Right. So
you're way up there.
Yeah, this is going to be the use case scenario if this is going to be in campaigns or games that are, evolutionary longer down the road.
Yeah.
So it would technically be easier for the GM to balance, but I guess they were really concerned with like what people were going to actually do with
higher level D&D. Unless they fix this, balance goes out the window anyway.
Yeah, and that's one of those ones where I question too, like this wizard custom spells, was it removed because they realized how powerful it could be and the potential that it had, or did it test poorly?
Right.
And that's one of those things, like I don't know if would that really have tested poorly or not,
I mean, it's a weird question. And how many of these things are just lumped together?
Yeah.
Like, was it that specific feature that tested poorly? Or like, did it kind of go because like, just like the spell list thing got changed, or like wizard overall didn't test well, or like there's all these different like variations and brackets for this, and I don't know. I want to say like I wish it was even more public than it is, because we watch these videos and stuff of Jay Craw talking about the test scores and things, and maybe they do go out and put the actual test scores for every single little bit. I haven't found it. I'm not saying it's not out there.
Yeah,
I'm a dum-dum.
That's not something that was readily privy to me. I know that they've talked about it in some of them, and sometimes they have reference specific test scores.
Yes.
But it's not as transparent as like a spreadsheet, right?
That's what I want.
Where it's like
I want hard numbers.
These are the changes that we put in, and over here is the percentage at which they tested. That is maybe too much information for the public.
No,
and that's why they don't want to give it to us.
I want it. Do they know who we are? We're a couple of white bearded men.
And we have opinions on your game.
Yeah. gimme.
And how you should be doing things.
Oh. But we do.
Yeah, we do. Everybody does. Everybody has
That's
opinions
fair.
on it.
That's the best part of this game.
Yeah.
Everybody gets to shape it. And that, you know what? Full stop. That's why I'm glad they do these Unearthed Arcanas and these surveys, because we do have a chance to shape the game. It's neat. That's why we always say, get in the surveys.
Yeah, get in the surveys and actually give the information. Like I said, even if you're going to regret your choices down the line,
right?
It's a good thing to put out there. But then that brings us to the next question too. Well, I guess not the next question, but a question is, how do you feel about Unearthed Arcanas in general? I know you like them and I know you think that they're a good thing, but if you take a step back, how much do you think these are really going to benefit us versus the company making their own choices from internal playtesting and not talking to the public?
One to the other?
Or do you think it's like
hard extremes?
Yeah. Do you think it's, yeah.
So I'll start this off with one thing. I do not selfishly enjoy them as much as I used to before D&D Beyond was acquired, because we used to actually go in and playtest these characters and these subclasses and everything easier than ever. With D&D Beyond, it was never easier. Like it was great. You could go on and test classes and subclasses before they hit the page, and it would update as there were changes and things like that. And then that was wonderful. You didn't have to do all the like pages and pages and pages of reading. You could just make a new character and actually try it out in the game. And we've played in so many games where this has actually happened. Right now, we're testing a character in our home game that is a play test character, and we're already having a good time with that, just getting that going. And man, if that was in D&D Beyond, that would be amazing. That's my soft opening. I'm already irritated. But just overall, do I think UAs are a good thing for the game? I think yes. I think that if WOTC were to make all of the decisions, we would probably still be back at some like 3.5 like kind of era. And maybe, I don't know, I think it's them being able to shoot the shot of like, all right, is this too complicated? Do you like it? What is this? This is the good balance. Okay, cool. All right, we're scoring about an 80%. This is pretty good. Mm-hmm. We want a 90. 80 is pretty good. All right, we'll keep working on it. I worry that between 2014 to 2024, I'm worried that they have maybe gotten too big. And like I said earlier, I think they're scared, and they're probably feeling a lot of pressure. They'll probably deny it, pressure from Hasbro and stuff like that. But I think there's definitely pressure there that like they need to see numbers from this game, and I hope that this game is just upward trajectory forever. That'd be great. The more people playing tabletop, the better. But it's not always going to be D&D. There's a lot of really good games out there. And of course, with it being the one we play the most, I selfishly want everyone to play D&D at least once. But not everyone's going to, and not everyone is going to pick up these books. And I don't know. I think I've gotten off, a lot from the question, but my main point there is that
you think that it's better.
I think it's good. I think the game would be worse off for the consumer at the end of the day if they didn't test it all, because there's definitely been some things. Look at the crit rule. There were a couple of variations of this crit rule that we just hated.
Yeah.
And if they were like, you know what, we think this is the one, and they put it out and that was just straight to print, and then they got a bunch of angry tweets and things like that, or like, yo, this is bad, they would have been like, uh-oh, let's do an errata. Like, but sir, it's already been printed. Like, oh no. But in the sake of change and growth and things like that, like Druid list and stuff, it would have been really cool if they had just pushed that out and we had to adapt and learn and actually really give it a chance. Like I get that side of it too. It's the scared. I keep going back to the scared because letting the fans, help you tweak it to the finer, more polished version of itself is the ideal situation here.
Sure.
I don't know why they keep just immediately stepping back instead of letting it sit for a second and trying to like mold it into the perfect shape. Instead of, it only got a 75, it didn't get a 90. We're gonna take it back, and put back the version that only had a 60 percentage on like the review score, from the fans and stuff. It's like, oh, why though? But why? Like, well, we'd rather give you the thing you already know than try to change it now.
Try and change things up.
And I really wonder if they weren't under the gun to get this out by next year, if they would let some of this stuff cook.
I think so too. I definitely think they could they would let it cook if they had the time to do so. And I think you hit the nail on the head as far as the fear is considered. But I'll play devil's advocate in this debate here and give you what my fear is, right? Which is why I asked you this question to begin with.
Sure.
And is whether or not these are good,
as we call it.
Asmodeus advocate is my fear is the vocal minority and the vocal majority, right? So here's my fear is that they're putting too much into these surveys. What if we're at a point right
quantity?
Now that they're putting too much stock into these surveys and not enough of a real subset is making their voice heard. Because I know that, everybody out here that's listening, not everybody is taking that survey.
There are
very vocal people who are taking these surveys.
This is back to where I wish they put out more numbers, because I know when these surveys first started coming out, it was thousands of people turning in these surveys. And most recently, J. Craw did say thousands of responses to these surveys. How many is thousands?
So yeah, exactly. That's my question.
30,000 surveys?
How many of thousands is it?
2,000.
And that's the part that, like, when I heard that part, right, and I started thinking about this question and why I posed it to you, is because how many thousands are we talking about? Because if we're talking about thousands as in 2,000 in the grand scheme of everybody that plays Dungeons and Dragons and 5e across the world who may or may not be reading these Unearthed Arcanas, that's a low number.
Yeah.
That would be a very low number. And if they're walking back these changes based on a fear response, then is it healthy for the game to have this Unearthed Arcana at all? Or would it be more healthy to have a more robust internal testing system? Because you mentioned, like, well, what if they had published crits and we had seen it like that and everybody would have freaked out? Would it have ever gotten there if they had more robust internal testing? Because if they did and they had a lot of internal going on, would it have ever gotten to a point where it would have been bad for the general public and not adaptable? Not saying that it, would it have gone back to the original, but would they have come up with something, like you say, like the Druids, where they would have published it and we would have had to adapt to it and eventually grown to like it and get used to it, like we have
grown to hate it
with current stuff. I mean, we're living with exhaustion the way that it is right now.
Yeah, we just
ignore it. And we've been doing it for since 2014 and just ignoring it for 10 years. And that's my side of the thing, and why I asked the question is because my fear is that the Unearthed Arcanas are putting too much stock into some of these surveys that they're getting back. And are we just making these fear-based reactions upon people who are very opinionated? And because they are the ones that are opinionated and they are the ones that are making their voices heard, that people that aren't taking the survey, that don't agree with some of these walkbacks, are not being heard. And stuff is getting walked back that maybe shouldn't be or wouldn't be if they didn't do Unearthed Arcanas and they did a normal release where they just did internal playtesting. Not saying that that's the right call.
Right. So,
but it's an interesting thing to think about.
Curveball. Join me on this walk. Hold my hand. This is a walk for real. Like, we're on the beach right now. Our shoes are off. One set of footprints, but I'm there with you. And how much of this for real? Yeah, I hate bringing it up on this podcast because D&D podcast was totally driven off the road because of the OGL stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because if they had a plan in mind, right? They had a direction they were going. And did that controversy, one, were we going to get more playtests? I mean, there were for sure, I think, going to be more of them.
Oh yeah, they had to slow them down for a while there. Yeah.
There were delays. Then we got this like massive ones for a little bit there. So
yeah, because they decided at one point that just not talking was the best course of action.
So we have this weird cadence.
They Homer Simpson into the bush.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And we have this weird cadence of UA releases. We have this WOTC that is out there like, haha, yes, we're mingling with the people at the conventions like we've always loved doing, but didn't do until we messed up and had to make amends, which is great. I love to see them out there and doing their thing, because at the end of the day, I do believe that the team at Wizards, I believe, are gamers. I believe they love what they do, and this it's a very passionate team behind this game. And I want to believe that they know what's best for this game, and part of that is getting our opinions and stuff. But go back to scared forever. Is that even more so the reason why they're cautious? Because they are afraid to take chances, because they took one chance in a very bad direction and it caused a lot of pushback, and now they're like afraid to. It feels like they're afraid to even put out this book if they didn't have to. And it just, everything, like the cadence and release schedule, all of it feels so off. And they have to be careful what they say. Everything has to be worded as community first and everything first. And every word you guys say, that's all we're about and everything. So when you get this, vocal minority out there screaming at the top of their lungs, change Warlock back, they're like, yep, okay, sorry, we didn't mean anything by it. We were just testing things, we figured it wouldn't test well. It's just a joke. Come on, guys. We wouldn't change Warlocks at all. Well, now we got what we got.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's what it is.
Well, that's the thing though. If it really is fear-based, you'd think they would be a little bit more experimental, just based on the stats of where they're talking about, like, you're still going to be able to use 2014. So if they really, really do believe that people are going to still play 2014 and they're really going to support 2014,
I don't think that's what it is.
Why not just lean into this new book?
I know they've seen numbers of people drop D&D and move to other gaming systems.
Yeah.
And a lot of their big dedicated creators and stuff just advocating day after day after day for other systems, even now, almost a year removed.
No, it's still happening. Yeah.
And they're in this weird situation where maybe it's not that they think like people are going to still rally behind the 2014 version as much as drop it entirely. Like just, they're just going to leave. And if we mess up and put out content they don't like, they're for sure, they're gone, guaranteed. We don't get a second shot. They've already decided they're done with 2014. Maybe we win them back on the hype of the 2024 version. And if they don't like what we put out, oof.
Yeah.
And they already liked 2014. So let's shiny coat of paint. And maybe we kind of hook them back in, because we know we have a good game. We know the community loves us. We've goofed on a like social level. And maybe we can win them back by just good faith, That's me.
I think that the biggest thing working against them right now is that timetable.
Yes, right? 100%.
Because
if this is 2025, I think it'd be a very different landscape.
If it was 2025, it'd be a very different landscape and a very different discussion.
Yes.
But right now we're looking at 50th anniversary, and we have some big stuff that has happened and we're still waiting on. And that brings us to Monks, for example.
Now, really quick, Monks, I think we're getting, one more playtest?
One more playtest.
Maybe there'll be a circuit if they squeeze it in there, but it sounds like one. It was either Chris Perkins or Jay Carl. One of them did say, and I love this, that there is stuff, and they had to promise this, but I'm glad they actually said it. There is a decent bit of stuff that are coming into these books that they have not shown us. And will
stuff
not
that
be
they're not
us.
Going to show, which is, I love that. Because they're leaning into the argument that I had before, which was not everything has to be run by the public.
Right.
That at some level we have to be able to trust them to create this game that they've already created for us multiple times
right,
over.
like Bastions.
I was so happy on my hill. I thought I had the high ground. I didn't know you were going to push me into the lava. So anyway, yeah, we have to like trust them, and I do like that. I like the fact that he was able to admit that yes, there's stuff that they haven't run by us that's going to be in these books, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah,
I'm hyped for that. That gives me hope for these books.
It's important.
But we're running out of time, and that's my biggest fear here. Yeah, because like we've had some major walkbacks that are big, and then we've had stuff that did not test well at all, and that wasn't a big enough move like monks.
Yeah,
man. I'm not sure how I feel about having so little time in, and I almost feel like it would behoove them to slide in more. Like, I know they've said that like, oh, we're going to do this many unearthed arcanas. We've got one more big one in us. And I would feel better if they came back and were all like, you know what? Monks, not great. We're going to rapid fire workshop monks over the next month. And we're going to release like 2 like in succession. We're going to try some stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick survey. We're going to try some stuff. We're going to take a quick survey. Because other than that, what are we going to get? We're going to get another survey, and we're going to look at monks, and we're going to say either we love it or we hate it, right? And then they're going to publish it,
or they're going to go with the 2014 version,
or they're going to just,
which we already didn't like,
walk it back to the 2014 version, which nobody is satisfied
now, to
with.
Be fair with,
and that's terrifying.
If they did an updated version of the 2014 version with the new direction they brought the subclasses.
Yeah.
Because the majority, open hand, excluded, the majority of the new subclasses we do like. So that they've already improved monk, which I'm worried is going to be they're settling.
That's
like,
it.
The subclasses are good though. We'll just put in the 2014 monk. I don't know. So there's something we're kind of skipping over, and it's that, WOTC is a company, and companies have, you have to go up and down the ladder to get things done,
to get things moving.
And their creative team, and I'm sure they have the capabilities of like, all right, let's do some rush projects and stuff like that. I do not know if they can put out something, let us give our gut reaction over the course of like a week or 2, and then get all that results, meet up, put up the PowerPoints, go through, get what the room of 30 to 50 people think, have them all get together over some coffee and chill, and like, okay, what do we want to change? And I don't know. I already put my best idea in and no one liked it. Okay, we got to try something else. No one liked that idea, sees. So, okay, what about you? I mean, what if the monks just didn't walk? What if they just floated 3 inches over the ground? No. Anyone else? And then you're like, well, we're out of ideas that we would have done in the first place. Like, oh, we have to do something. We have to put out another version this week. Maybe that doesn't work.
Yeah, and you're probably right. I guess mine was kind of like a,
perfect world.
It's in a perfect world. Yeah.
I agree. And if they're capable of doing so, I think that's the right way. Shoot it back and forth like Pong, like as quick as possible. Like, it's really like take this like slab of monk and like until it's like, like let's get it going. And even if they could push out 2 variations on this next test. If it was like, this is the monk test, and they're like, we're putting out, unprecedented, we're putting out 2 versions of the monk at the same time, slight tweaks even, or drastic tweaks between the 2. How do you feel about both of them? And if one of them is very close, or one of them is perfect, you nailed it, just go with it. Or you see what is better, and you see what you like about one, and what if the other one, part of it tests better than part of the other one. Then you take that, swap it over, see if that bumps that one up.
Yeah.
They maybe, but then it is their creative team able to spit out 2 versions of a monk at once. It sounds so easy as like the armchair quarterbacks.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Being able to just read the content, go I'm gonna send the surveys. So like we do this there all the time. And we have great ideas, wonderful ideas, big ideas. And
the best ideas.
The best ideas. We can fix this game. Build a wall between us and Pathfinder.
I can fix Monk if you just let me.
And make them pay for it. Yes, I can fix you, Monk.
Like I said, I'm just worried because the last version of the Monk, they got the subclasses right. They took away a lot of flavor in the base abilities of Monk, and I don't feel that the core Monk addressed what was wrong with the Monk.
No,
is really what it comes down to.
The core new version of the Monk was just bad Monk.
Yeah, it was just bad Monk with flavor removed from it, which is a big heavy hitter for me. You take away the flavor, and it makes me like something even less.
It's just boring.
It just makes it milquetoast.
And then very interesting direction of like, but a couple of these subclasses are amazing.
Oh yeah.
And you put those together, and you if that's the direction, you have a very solid, they'd have to tweak it, very solid Monk foundation and subclasses that bring out the character.
Yes.
Then, okay, this is neat. They're also talking about, like making it to where everyone gets their subclass at like level 3. So that your first 2 levels are boring Monk every time.
Yeah, every time.
Like,
like I said, I'm just worried about the timetables right now.
The timetables are scary.
Because we know...
They scare me.
Yeah, because we know that we're running out and we don't have much time at all. And it's getting closer and closer. I mean, looking at the calendar, we're almost into December now. And we're trying to get these surveys out, play tested, and back to them so that they can publish next year.
Yeah.
That's madness. I mean, I can't pretend to know anything about publishing a book.
I mean, we can pretend to know.
I mean, I can pretend all day long.
We pretend a lot.
It's going to be a lot of...
kind of what we do.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of guesswork, but I can't imagine that it doesn't take a little bit of time.
Especially when they've dropped their publisher this year. And
oh, yeah, no, all that combined, yeah. So that's my biggest concern is where are we at right now? Like, how are we going to have something, and is it going to be a big enough departure from 2014 to matter to anyone?
Yeah. It's scary. The theme of this episode for me is fear.
Is fear. Fear from our side, fear from their side. Everybody's afraid of everyone.
Which is unfortunate.
But on the same side, I'm kind of excited for a new book because, like I said before, Jeremy Crawford has said that there are stuff that they have not talked to us about that are big, that are in the books, and I'm excited to see what those things are because there are some cool stuff.
When I look at the books too, I don't think of them individually, right? When I say the book or the books, I'm usually talking about all 3. Now, if I break this down, Monster Manual, he said there's what it was 80. Is that right? Was it 50 or 80? I think it was 80. I could be totally wrong. But let's say 80. Maybe it's less. New monsters. Totally new. We haven't seen them. Awesome. Organization changes where like Gelatinous Cube is at G instead of O for ooze. Like things like that are amazing.
Great. Quality of life.
Quality of life Monster Manual. Better stat blocks. Art for every single creature. Amazing. And multitude of new creatures and better level 20 capable like CR20 monsters and baddies and stuff like that. Great, cool. Monster Manual, stamp it. Sounds wonderful. I haven't even seen the book. I'm gonna buy it. They've told me enough. That's all I needed for that. The DM's guide, okay, it's gonna be easier to run, as I've been told. Bastions worries me, and that's really all we've seen. I don't know if we need to see more. Like, what else, unless it's a new tool, like brand new tool, do we really need to see?
Yeah, I don't know what we're going to see. We know we're going to see something.
I can't say based off what I do know that I'm excited for it, though. As someone who already feels comfortable running these games as is, do I need to read this?
Yeah,
how much is it going to be rehashed?
Yeah, what new tool do you find lacking right now?
Yeah.
And there really isn't much. I mean, nobody asked for Bastions.
Yeah.
And that's a new tool. Yeah, we already had them.
I had them as franchises.
That's the thing. We don't know what it is because maybe there is something that's groundbreaking and amazing.
Sure.
That we just don't know about.
I think if I had to guess, it's mostly going to be quality of life, which is wonderful, especially for new GMs.
Yeah.
Especially, this is a new push. This is a great chance to get new players into the game. So wonderful. Cool. Refresh on that. Do I need to buy it immediately? No. Monster Manual? Check. DM's Guide? But the player's handbook. Yes. As someone running games, I have to run to the store and buy this because I need to know what my players' options are and possibilities and what to expect in the games and how to help them build new characters and just, hey, look, I know you've played a cleric before, but check out this new version. Hey, I know you've been afraid to play druid before because it kind of overcomplicate. You didn't want to have to flip through the book and find all these different stat blocks. Look at this new version. You really have to worry about 3 blocks, and you just tell me what kind of animal you want to be. Things like that, if they were to do that and stick with that, are neat. And I want to buy this book. I need to buy this book to be able to play games at the current version. I don't necessarily feel that for the other 2. Even Monsters Manual, which I will be buying day 1 because I want new things. I want new toys. And to see what slight adjustments have been made balance-wise and stuff to other creatures. But I don't need to get that to make my games, fun or exciting or new for the players. There are still bajillions of creatures you have never gone against because there's just so many of them.
The nature of the game, yeah.
Yeah. Player's Handbook, on the other hand, that's a day 1 because that's new experiences for everybody at the table, including myself. And I worry. I worry about that book more than either of the other 2, and I feel like they do too. They got to get this right. Now they've made some cool changes to some of these and some good balances and things like that. So I'm gonna buy it either way.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
not
a
saying
lot
it's
of
the end of the
positives
world.
there. Yeah, there's a ton of positives. For every negative that we brought up today, there's multiple great changes to things, and Rangers have gotten so much better.
And maybe UAs are part of this.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I mean, like everything. It seems to be heading in a positive direction, and like we keep running back to is if we had more time.
Oh, God, yep,
it
that's
could
what
be
it is.
even better.
And I know we don't.
And that's the only thing that's really terrifying is time.
Unless someone at Hasbro or WOTC is just like, look, dollars will be lost if this doesn't get pushed back a little bit. I don't think it's going to.
Yeah, let's just have a party for the 50th anniversary.
That's the thing.
And not publish a book.
We could spend the 50th anniversary celebrating Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And how far, 5th edition has come and how great it's been. And guess what, guys? Next year, we get a new version, a new edition. Also, bring back one D&D. That was a term that I know had a weird legs for the first week, but then I feel like people grasped it pretty easily.
Yeah.
Like, this is what D&D is going forward. It's no longer 5th edition and all this other stuff.
We loved it.
One D&D.
And
we'll just adjust it going forward, and you'll get erratas and rule changes, stuff like that. And it is what it is. And I'm like, this is D&D. I'm like, I love it, especially combining VTT and D&D Beyond and all these other things. And then they were like, oh, between the OGL and everything else, it's got to stink. It's got to stink to it. So let's just pull back. It's the 2024 rendition of the 2014 5th edition Player's Handbook and stuff. And I'm like, what?
No, I miss one D&D.
Yep.
I liked it a lot.
It was a fun
It was
term.
Catchy, got the point across. It's just really clean.
Yep. And they memed it to hell, though. It was memed to hell.
I hope you're happy.
Yeah. Thanks. But, at the end of the day, Hasbro and or WotC to blame for that, too.
Yeah. They learn from your mistakes.
Yep.
And move on. And keep producing cool stuff that we all love.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Paizo, Pathfinder, Starfinder, keep on trucking. I hear you're doing great things out there. We're excited to play Starfinder soon. Keep an eye out for that on the channel. Second edition out recently.
Yeah.
Or, remaster, rendition of second edition. They're doing cool things over there. It's always positive. Everything seems so positive on their side of the fence.
Yeah, there's less arguing over there.
Yeah, they're having fun. I look over every once in a while, and it seems like you guys are having a great time.
Yeah, there's like a nice little party going on all the time.
You could just hand me like a Twinkie.
The music's not too loud either.
No, it's just like, it's a very
unobtrusive.
Yeah, good levels. Yeah. Everybody's always smiling. And people seem like they show up like daily. Like no one's calling in sick. Weird.
I don't know.
What are we doing
there again?
We're in too deep. Someone send help. Any closing thoughts, Mr. Richard?
No, I think we already closed it, which is just,
Okay.
you know, where so I guess I would say I'm hopeful for the new book. I am, like I said, a little terrified for it, but I know that they are capable of doing this even without our input. I think they could have produced a product and they can produce a product that people are going to overall enjoy. So that gives me some solace in knowing that, you know, they have a track record for making some questionable decisions, yes, but at the end of the day, producing a product that I love, that a lot of people love. And I think they can do it. And I'm rooting for them. I'm right here for it. I'm rooting for it. And I hope that it does turn out great.
I guess we'll
only
see.
Time will tell.
I'm excited for the next. For the first, I felt drowned by some of these UAs, but this next one I'm really looking forward to see if they stick the landing or not.
Yes.
And if they do, most of my fears will be gone.
Yeah. No.
And if they don't, they're exemplified.
We'll just have to wait and see.
So thank you everybody for listening, tuning in if you're checking out the video version. The video version, of course, if you are just listening, can be found on YouTube. You can find us there and most of our socials at True Strike Pod. If you are on in many numerous podcatchers around the globe, you can find us on at True Strike Podcast. Be sure to give us a follow, 5 stars, thumbs up, whatever you like.
Smash that like button.
You don't have to smash the like button.
Smash that like button.
You can gently press the like button at your leisure. But for now, I've been Tyler.
And I've been Richard.
And we've been True Strike. He was gonna point.
That was finger gun.
Bang. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, adventurers. Thanks again for joining us today. Please be sure to give us a follow on your favorite podcasting platforms and YouTube. If there's any questions you'd like to write into the show, you can hit us up on Threads or Instagram. New episodes release every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for listening to True Strike.